We go. Okay, ladies, we are going to get started. We had some others register, but I always like to honor those who made it right at the top of the hour. So I want to first of all say welcome, superstars. Welcome to the best version of you. And I'm really excited about tonight's session because tonight is going to be about one of my personal favorite topics, and that's about how can we be more successful? How can we have more sales? And how can we, most importantly, get unstuck? Before we get started tonight, I want to take a moment, and since we are a handful of us in the moment, I would like to see if each person would like to just quickly introduce themselves and share what brought you to tonight's webinar.
Yes, happy to. Susan Friedman. I'm in Lake Placid, New York. And I was here to support you, Amy, and to learn from your wisdom. So thank you.
Thank you for joining, Susan. And Lorraine, are you with us?
I am with you. I'm going to stay on with my camera off, but I'm Lorraine Brown, and I am from the Villages, Florida, and I am here to gain wisdom from your experience.
Thank you. I'm so excited you're here tonight, Lorraine. Thank you for joining us. So let's get started. And I am going to be recording the session tonight. So I always ask if you are in a place where there could be noise, if you wouldn't mind putting yourself on mute. And I also want to remind you that this will be an interactive session. I will be asking some questions throughout our evening. And also, if you would like to grab a piece of paper, a pen, a pencil, a tablet, I'm going to be sharing a lot of information tonight. And I'm also going to be sharing throughout this evening a little bit about my story of going from being stuck back to success. I am also going to walk you through a process that you can apply to your life, your business, your sales immediately to get the results you're looking for. And then later in the evening, I'm also going to extend an opportunity to everyone. And of course, I will also offer a bonus at the very end of our session tonight. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first question I always like to ask is, have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract sales and success with grace and ease? It's almost like some people just make it look easy. And the other side of this too is sometimes we're also asking ourselves, how can I get back to the best version of myself? I'm not sure about you ladies and gentlemen who may be joining us, but I will say I spent much of my life feeling as though I was working very hard. And there were times in my life where I got some great results. And there were other times where I didn't get great results. But the catch is that many times I felt tapped out and burned out. No matter how hard I pushed and tried, I didn't feel all the time like I was getting that sense of fulfillment, and the work was honestly not fun anymore. So what I'm going to share tonight is some ways that I overcame those challenges in my life that you can again apply to your life to get the results you're looking for. So the next question is would you like me to share an idea with you? The first idea is that I want to break up the myth that we've got to work hard for success, and this includes sales. So I will be focusing a lot tonight on sales because I think sales is that one area where we sometimes feel as though if I just got more leads, if I just had more activity, if I just had more in my funnel, I would be successful. But the challenge I'm going to offer tonight is different. The challenge I'm going to offer you to consider is this, and that is, what if it was not about working smarter? What if it was about thinking smarter to get to success? So what I'll be talking about tonight is I'm going to talk to you about how our habits that we have, and some of the habits we have, we're very aware of them. Some of the habits we have, we might not be aware of, but we're going to talk about how our habits actually can either support our success or, on the other hand, they can sabotage our success. I'm also going to be talking about a science called axiology and a philosophy that was created by Og Mandino. And we combine these both together, we will have success. And I'm speaking from my personal experience and also being a certified habit finder coach now for about 5 years. So what you're about to discover is this. You're about to discover that if you feel as though you're working hard and not getting the results you want, it may be something as simple as your self-talk. It might be habits that you are avoiding. It might be habits that you are doing each day that are pulling you further away from your success. And we will talk about these as the night goes on. But my promise to you tonight is that you'll come away from our session with some ideas and, most importantly, at least 6 key concepts that you can apply to your personal life, your business life, and let's just say the parts of your life that matter most, because each of us has different goals, different aspirations, different areas we're trying to get better at. So I'm going to ask you now in the chat, if you'd like to share, is there any part of your life right now where you feel like you would like to get better results? And we're amongst friends here, so I promise what's said here stays here. And I don't share this recording, by the way, unless one of you asks me for it, or if there's somebody that registered that didn't make it, but this is not for public use. So let me see in the chat box, what areas of your life would you like to see some more success? Okay, I see work. Any others? All right, we'll stick with that for right now. And with work, is it results in work? Is it sales? Can you be specific? Got it. Okay, thank you. It is definitely sales. Okay. And I will share that that will be part of my story also, that that was an area where I was very stuck in my life at one certain point. So I'm glad that you shared that. So what this really comes down to, as I already said a few minutes ago, is it comes down to this thing called our habits, but not just habits. It's called our thought habits. So the challenge that we face is that, as I said in my introduction, we have thought habits that support our success, and then we have thought habits that sabotage our success. And the best way I can show this with just my hand movements is that if the best version of me is right here, I have thoughts that are helping me be the best version of myself. And if the current version of me is over here and the stuck feeling I have, I also have thought habits that continue to keep me there. So the reason that we feel stuck as human beings is that it's almost like we're in neutral sometimes. Has anyone besides me ever felt stuck before? Yes, we all have. We're all human beings. Okay. Yep, I just put my hand up. Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit further. Now, I just showed you an idea of what it looks like to have thought habits support our success and thought habits that sabotage our success. So I'm going to share an example right now, and I'm going to relate it to my sales career. So the idea is that my thought habits are, I know I should pick up the phone and make more phone calls, and I know I should do that prospecting and that business development activity. So let's talk about how that plays out. So here I am. I know I've got to make the calls. I know that I need to do the follow-ups. I know that I need to do a certain amount of activity to generate my results. But here's what happens is the future me says, I want to be in the top 10 in my sales team this year. So what happens is my supportive thought habits might say to myself, I love working with people. I love my mission of serving. I used to be in healthcare sales. I really felt like I was making a difference in saving lives with the products I sold. But one habit I had that continued to pull me back is I lacked the self-discipline. Oftentimes I lacked the focus. And so what happened is oftentimes I stayed stuck. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that. But you right now might be wondering, what are my thought habits? And so what I'm going to invite you to do, if you've not taken this habit assessment, is I am going to invite you to take it as I put my hand down. And the habit assessment, what it will do is it's going to show you where you stand today in 6 key areas of your thinking. And the QR code will take you right to the assessment. And the other thing that it will do is it will also show you where you stand in those areas. So I'm going to pause a moment, and this is something that you can hold your phone up with a QR code. You can get the process started. The process of taking this habit assessment actually takes about 5 to 10 minutes. So if it's something that you want to plug into your browser and just keep it on your phone and come back to it after this call, that's great. If you decide you want to take it right now, I'm just giving you a reminder, it'll take 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm okay if you do that behind the scenes while I am going through this webinar. So here's the takeaway from this that I'm going to share with all of you is that our thought habits are something that the good news is we can change our thought habits. Our brains have a quality called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity means that we can change our thought habits, but it requires three things. Number one, it requires awareness of where we are today, which is what this habit assessment will show you. Number two, it takes action, which means I say to myself, I'm going to do something and change this. And three, it takes accountability, which means either a coach, a program, a support group, whatever it is. I have found in my life that making changes does not usually happen unless I have the support of, again, a person, a team, somebody else. But that's the good news, is that we can change our thought habits. So there is some exciting news with that. But the next thing I'd like to talk about is that in addition to our thought habits not only can affect our outcomes at work, such as in sales, they can affect a lot of other areas of our life, including our self-confidence. And I'm going to talk about that now. So our self-confidence is going to be that feeling of I can or I can't, as this picture shows you. And I'm going to share some statistics with you all right now that you might find startling. Number one, did you realize that in the workplace, about 40% of productivity is lost due to misalignment of different people's thoughts, viewpoints, and experiences? In addition to that, over 95% of the disease that happens in the elderly is driven by a lifetime of worry, and as I call it, catastrophizing, which means thinking of the worst case scenario day in and day out. So it's almost as though our thought habits can actually make us physically sick, which might sound strange and it might sound intense. But again, I'm pulling this information directly from Google. It's not something that I'm making up. But one of the things that I've also found in this is that the habit of self-confidence is probably the toughest habit to master. And number two, it's probably the habit that we need the most to succeed in sales success. So what this means is that the opportunity is now, and living in the two worlds we live in, I say that success in sales is 90% mindset and 10% tactics. And after having spent years, actually to be upfront, spending over 20 years in sales and 10 years in corporate sales training, many traditional sales training programs just focus on the tactics. Just go out and make more calls, learn your product, know your competition, just do the right thing. But what one area that they do not focus on, and I know this again because I worked in this area, is they are not focusing on the mindset of sales and success, which again, I believe is driven by number one, self-confidence. So this formula to me is something that I refer to as the sales confidence code. So who am I and why should you listen to me? Now, I know both of you ladies very well, but for anybody that's not here tonight watching the replay, I'll just share a little bit about my background. The first thing I'll share with all of you is that it's no secret. I struggled with self-confidence most of my life. That started when I was 9 years old. I was in a car accident. I was almost killed by a drunk driver. I've probably had at least 100 reconstructive cosmetic surgeries on my face. And I always say that that part of the journey was the easy part for me, but the part that was really difficult was the toll it took on my self-confidence. And most of my life, I found that I went through initiations, invitations. The first initiation when I was a teenager. My grandmother gave me a book called Determination by Helen Keller. I believed and learned we can retrain our mindset. Then my mom gave me a book by Tony Robbins. I once again learned we can retrain our mindset. And then the third invitation was when I got into sales. And I'll share a little bit more about that story because what happened when I got into sales was probably the biggest initiation I had around confidence and mindset. And the story was just probably a few years ago. It wasn't too long ago, but what happened is I had my best year ever in sales. I was in the top 10. I got to stand on stage at the national sales meeting. I got promoted to be a sales field trainer. I was making great money. I mean, I just thought things can't get any better. Well, then the next year came along and my results were flat. And I worked for a company back in that day that was Fortune 500, and the message was everybody makes their quota, everybody performs. And I remember I was beginning to make excuses for my performance to my boss. I just said, it's the competition, it's our prices, it's my territory. I had a whole list of reasons why I couldn't sell anymore. And then came the morning I'll never forget. I was sitting at my desk getting ready to go to a sales appointment, and there it was in my inbox. The performance improvement plan, as we say in sales, the PIP. My boss put in black and white, if you don't turn around your sales performance in the next 30 days, you will be terminated from this company. Terminated, I thought to myself. I mean, I had already been at this company for 8 years. My whole identity was around being a sales rock star. My mom had been in sales, my dad had been in sales. So I'm thinking of this with anger. But then as the day went on, I really began to feel fear. I mean, what if I get fired from my job? I was the main breadwinner for my household. I mean, my friends knew I was in sales, my family, my customers. I mean, what am I going to tell everybody that I got fired because I can't perform? So when I got home from work that day, I looked out into the distance and I remember thinking I can either make a left-hand turn and quit my job right now and find another one, or I can try to turn this thing around. And I decided to turn this thing around, and I knew I wasn't going to get a great sales job being at like 9% of my quota midway through the year. So what I did changed my life is I hired a sales coach. And my coach Mike got me to immediately see 3 big lessons. Number 1, and if you want to write these down, attitude, activity, and accountability. The first thing that Mike got me to see was that my attitude was focused on fear and my attitude was focused on failure. And I remember working with him, and I remember one day feeling as though I was mortified. Oh my gosh, what if I get fired? But then the next day I woke up and I remember saying to myself, I'm not going out this way. I have worked way too hard in my career to just flush this down the toilet. So my attitude changed. And it took a little while working with him, but once my attitude changed, the next thing we focused on was my accountability. I had gotten lazy. Let's just call it for what it is. I had stopped making the phone calls. I had lost my self-discipline. I wasn't doing the activity anymore. And so he got me to be accountable by sending him every Friday my KPIs. I still do this today in my business, by the way. I send them to an accountability coach. But every week I send her how many calls I've made, how much business I've brought in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the third thing that he had me focus on was my activity. Activity equals results in sales. There is no way around it. So activity equals results means what am I doing day in and day out to make me successful? Now, I'm going to fast forward a few years, and I'll tell you, the good news is my story ended well. I went back to 128% of my quota by the end of the year. I got to stand on stage at the national sales meeting, but something bigger happened. That part of my story to me is not really important. I saw a vision for myself to be a teacher and trainer of sales and sales confidence. and I took a course about thought habits. And I just got chills when I said that, because that course, of everything I've done, Toastmasters, Tony Robbins, a course about thought habits, is really what changed it all. And I just did this about 5 years ago. So this is where we really combine the mindset with the tactics, and we get to the best version of ourselves in sales. And we're going to talk more about that. But our thought habits really are what determine our success, not just in life, not just in business, but also in sales. And we're going to cover that. So some of the common myths you might hear are this. Sometimes I hear people tell me so many things about success, but one of them is, I've tried everything. I've even tried therapy. I'm not good at sales. There's a whole list of reasons that people think they cannot be good at sales or sales confidence. And I want to share with you right now that every one of us is born with confidence within us. What happens is that we have beliefs about ourselves, that I'm not good in sales, that people don't want my product, that it's just some people are good at it and I'm not. And that is all BS, which is belief systems, by the way. So just know that if you're thinking any of those thoughts right now, I would love to see them in the chat. Maybe somebody else you're talking to has said these types of things, but is there anything that you say to yourself when it comes to sales as to why you can't be successful? And I'm going to pause a minute while you put those in there in the chat box. Again, any other myths that you've heard about sales? Okay, don't deserve, I see that one. Any others? Not worthy, okay. Any others that anyone wants to share? Okay, well, I appreciate the sharing on this. And yes, it's all it's interesting because some of the things that I saw in the chat were really did center around, again, that inner game. When I was saying earlier, it's that mindset around selling. That's what that keeps us stuck. And just like my story that I'm going to come back to, my mindset was, I'm going to get fired and I'm a failure. And thinking that every day, guess what I got more of until I shifted that mindset? I did get back to success, as I shared in my story, but it was a process that I had to go through that I'm going to be talking to you about next. So the common thread that we share is that we can't get better at sales. It's too difficult. I'm not born with these gifts that everybody else is. So here's the idea to consider. As I said already, you have the spark within you to succeed in sales. And I want to share with you now some of the steps that I know you all came to hear tonight about how you can rebuild your resilience and your success habits as it relates to sales. So the first thing that I'd like to share with you is this idea of goal setting and dream creation. Now, one of the things that I'll share with all of you is that it's not just about setting a goal or having a dream, but here's what too often happens is, number one, we have a habit of visualizing success, but we forget to do one thing. We forget to take the first step. So as an example, my goal that year that I almost got fired from my job was, I want to at least make 100% of my quota. But what I did instead is, instead of just focusing on, I want to make 100% of my quota, I started focusing on the 2mm steps that I was going to take each day to get to that goal. So one of the things that I talked about earlier is having KPIs, key performance indicators. So when I was, my territory was the state of Illinois, and I was calling on hospitals and healthcare. But I remember every Friday afternoon, I would fill out this Excel spreadsheet and I would send it to my accountability coach, Mike, my sales coach also. And I would send that to him whether I had my 50 calls in or if I didn't, no matter what it was. Once I started taking that habit of taking action each day, my numbers started to get better. My performance got better. So here's one of the laws of sales that I think it's not written in any textbooks, and I don't know if I created it, but I believe there is a law in sales, and it's the law of appreciation for the activity. Let's just call it the law of activity. Easiest way to say it. But the law of activity is if you do the activity, if you continue to make it an activity 2 millimeters each day, I promise you, you will get results. And I know that because that year that I almost got fired, I remember I was making the calls, I was doing the activity, and I still wasn't making any sales. And then I got a phone call from a hospital that did a drop ship order for $500,000 just out of the blue. And I believe the universe will pay you. You will be rewarded if you take the action and do the activity. But if you don't do the activity, you also get recognized for that as well. The next thing I put on here is quit fantasizing. Fantasies are basically dreams and goals without action. And, there's nothing wrong with having dreams and having an idea of what you want to see, like a vacation or a place you want to live. But where it becomes dangerous, the other side of this is we catastrophize. And we say things like, well, if I call these people, they're going to hang up on me, or they're not going to come to my webinar, or they're not going to come to my class, or they're not going to buy from me because they like this other person or this other product better. So we talk ourselves out of taking action. So in both of these situations, the best remedy is to make it a habit to take 2 millimeter steps each day. Now, the reward is you will also be more confident because your self-esteem and your self-confidence will rise when you make that commitment to yourself to do the daily activity. The next issue that we run into is we get to a place of being unfulfilled because we stay on a hamster wheel of obligation. And one of the habits that I talk about is called finding joy in the journey. Joy in the journey means finding the appreciation for what you're doing. So whether you are, I'm just thinking of some different titles. Maybe you're a nurse, maybe you work in healthcare, maybe you are somebody who has a profession that maybe you're a school teacher. But what we mean by joy in the journey is find the appreciation in what you do every day. And I think the best example I can share about this is when I was a sales trainer in a company. I'm going to be upfront with you. There were some coworkers and departments I did not particularly get along with. And I remember sometimes all I would do is think about them. But to get back to my joy in the journey, what I found through this course is focus on what you do enjoy about your work. And I remember my joy in my work was that if I had people coming to my sales training class that were anxious and ready and eager to learn, that made all the other stuff not even exist. So it's almost like if we pay attention to what we appreciate and enjoy, that is going to manifest and get bigger. But the more time we spend on the things we don't enjoy or people we don't enjoy, the bigger that's going to get also. So finding joy in the journey is the power of finding fulfillment in your life and the work you're doing and in sales. And remember, sales is service. Sales is just about finding out what somebody else wants or needs and helping them get it. That's all sales is about. It's nothing more than that. And if we can remember, sales is 90% customer service. It's about 10% getting an order or getting a signed contract, but it's all the time leading up to the sale, and it's all the time servicing our customer after the sale. That is all customer service. So remember that if you like working with people and serving people, then you're a natural in sales if you think about it that way. The next habit that I'd like to talk about where we sometimes get stuck is this habit that I will refer to as self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth. One of the biggest destroyers of our self-confidence is something that I call expectations and comparison. Expectations are when we say things like, the year I almost got fired from my job, I should be in the top 10 and instead I'm about to get fired, or my life looks like this, but it should look like that instead. The other thing we do is we compare. We will look at everybody around us and we ask ourselves, how come I'm not as good as they are? Now, the best way to resolve these issues is number one, we've got to pay attention to negative self-talk. Okay. We all have it. I have it. It's part of being a human being. But if we're letting that drive our life, it's going to affect our results. So instead, the remedy to be more confident, number one, what are your unique gifts? Embrace the gifts that you have. What makes you unique, better, and different than everybody else that's doing the same thing you are? And then the next side of that is appreciation. I know everybody in this room has been through some hard times. I can certainly say I've been through some hard times myself. But one thing that we forget is that hard times make us better people. Hard times also build resilience. Tough times build confidence. And tough times actually make us better people. So if you're going through anything, or if there's something you keep replaying in your mind about something you've gone through, why don't you ask yourself, how did this make me a better person? Okay. And that's everything from job losses to relationship breakdowns. I'm happy to tell you all, I'm not married once, twice. I'm on my third marriage, and I'm not ashamed to say it, because the last two people I was married to, they taught me the type of person I don't want to be with ever again. And it also led me to the man I'm married to now, which is quite honestly the guy I wish I would have married years ago. But all of these life events are just teachers. They're nothing to feel guilty or ashamed or bad about. But all too often, we carry a backpack of bricks, and we carry that with us every day, thinking could have, should have, and would have. And you know what? That's not going to get any of us anywhere. So instead of focusing on the past with the guilt and the shame, or having anxiety about the future, I invite you to be in the now and appreciate those people, those situations, because they only made you stronger. They only made you better. And I'll speak for myself. I always learned a really good lesson. I think that events and people can sometimes be messengers and lessons for us. Okay, so as we move forward, the next area where we can excel in sales is through the power of connections. Now, the power of connections is really all about the gift of connecting better with people. And, excuse me, where this can get challenging in sales and business development is maybe we had a tough customer. I know that having worked in sales again for 20 years, sales training in 10, sometimes we have a tough day or a tough person that comes in our path. And then what do? We go to our next meeting, our next appointment, whatever it is, and we are carrying around that experience with us. But here is something to consider, is that people and connections are the lifeblood of our business. So one of the things that I often invite people to consider is that when you're in sales, am I focusing on myself? Am I focusing on making that sale? Or am I focused on being in service to somebody else? And there's a concept we talk about called intrinsic validation. That really simply means when you engage with anybody, make sure that they're wearing that sign that says, make me feel important across their forehead, because you never know what is going to happen or where someone's going to lead to. And, I'll share a quick story, but I remember I had a purchasing manager I called on in a hospital, and he treated me not very nice at all. He would block me from seeing any of the nursing staff. He wouldn't take my calls. He was always trying to keep me out. And the funny thing about it is I always was professional with him, even when he was not nice to me, even when he did the things he did. And you know what happened is he went to another hospital across town it was like a few months later, and he ended up being my best friend. I mean, he completely changed his attitude when he went somewhere else. And I look back on that experience. This is funny. He was also the person that gave me the $500,000 order I wasn't expecting. But I learned from that experience, had I been rude to him, had I treated him the way he treated me, he would not have given me the business at the other hospital. So sometimes, and not sometimes, always, it's better to take the high road and to remember that people are the lifeblood of our business. The thing that gets in the way of us better connecting with people is, again, we carry around stuff. We carry around baggage. We're not present. We're trying to make a sale, or we're focused on something else. And the last thing I'll share with you that I teach in sales training classes is I call it self versus other focus. We want to be focused on that other person. So when you're making your sales calls, are you prepared? Do you have an outline of what you're going to talk about? Do you keep your commitments? Do you return phone calls? Do you return emails? Do you make yourself invaluable to your prospects and customers? Because these little things really add up. And whether it's a prospect or a current customer, do you return the message or the call or the text within 24 hours? Now, I know these might sound like very basic and simple things, but one of the books I recommend you read about sales is called The Challenger Sale. In that book, it specifically says the number one most important reason someone does business with us, it's not the pricing, it's not our marketing, it's not the service delivery, it's the sales experience or the customer experience we bring that person. 54% of 200 people that were interviewed said this is the number one reason I do business with somebody else. It's based on that person. It's based on the experience they bring me. So this is, all these habits I'm talking about are important, but I really think this and self-confidence are probably the biggest habits to consider to be more successful in sales and business development. Now, this next one is all about mastering our emotions. Mastering our emotions is so important in sales and business development. And why is it so important? Well, one of the concepts that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, one of the scrolls is called Today I Will Be Master of My Emotions. This affects us in sales because if we're not feeling good, if we had a rough sales day, if we're tired, if we don't feel like making the calls, if we're burned out, whatever those emotions are that are going on, they are going to stop us from taking action if we allow them to. So what we want to do is we want to make it a habit to act in spite of our emotions, okay? I mean, as an example, I was in my office today. A lot of my friends are taking the week off. A lot of people are chilling out. And it was about 4 o'clock. And I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't made a lot of my contact calls this week or my reach outs. So for that hour, I reached out to about 25 contacts, follow-ups, emails, text messages. And the reason I bring that up is, did I want to do it? No, I didn't feel like doing it. I wasn't in the mood to do it. But if I've taught myself to act in spite of my emotions, I do things like that no matter what I'm feeling like. And I think this is a big area where we fall short in sales and business development, is that we get stuck. And when we get stuck, one of my favorite people, Tony Robbins, says, when we get stuck, we question. When we question, we doubt. When we doubt, we don't do, and I won't say the word he says, but it starts with an S and it ends with a T. And it's really true. I've been there before where I've had, I've had an event and, things maybe didn't go the way I wanted, or someone or somebody canceled something. And it's really easy to fall into the doldrums quickly. And I'm a very, I admit it, I'm an emotional, high-strung person. I'll call it out for what it is. But this is where it's really important to have a coach, have a mentor, have somebody you can talk to. Sometimes it's your spouse, your significant other, or a friend. But the biggest thing I invite you to do is when you have those rough days in sales or business development, let it go. I've had times in my sales career where I lost a really big sale, like it was $6 million. It was going to be 6 hospitals. And I thought about it and self-sabotaged myself for like 3 months after that. I don't do that anymore. So here's 3 questions to ask yourself. If something doesn't go your way, what did I do well? What would I do different next time? And what did I learn? Okay, so what did I do well? What would I do different next time? And what did I learn? If you can make it a habit to ask these types of questions instead of staying in our head, which is our emotions, you're going to move forward a lot faster from these types of situations. Now, the last habit is a tough one, the habit of self-discipline and structure. And the reason that we really need this in sales, as I've talked about already, as we all know, it takes an incredible amount of grit and resilience to stay the course in sales and business development. And I heard this when I got into sales many years ago. My first outside sales job was selling payroll for ADP. And they had a saying, a salesman or saleswoman does best what he or she does day in and day out. So the structure is about following process. Do you have a sales process you follow? Do you have, maybe there's, for me, sales process is what I teach and preach every day in corporate America. But sales process, there's also a marketing process. There's a lot of processes we need to go to, and we need to trust those processes. The other thing that I want to invite you to consider is that what we most often want and need is right behind that thing called structure. Or another saying I like to say is the cave we fear to enter often holds the treasure we seek inside. So following rules, following processes, following procedures. And the big thing on this one is learning to quiet the noise in our minds, okay? This is so important because if you don't control that noise in our mind, and I have it, we all have it, but do you have a morning ritual? Do you have any activities or ways that you quiet your mind on a daily basis? This morning I went out and took a walk, even though it's 30 something degrees where I live right now. I'm not a big cold weather fan, but I went out and took a walk just to clear my mind. So if you can think about mindset, clearing your mind, following the process, then you are going to be an expert at structure in no time. Okay. So the thing that I'm going to talk about now is you're probably wondering this process I'm talking about and this thing about thought habits I've been talking about. Here's what it comes down to is that, as I said from the beginning, our thought habits support or sabotage our success. So when you took the habit finder assessment earlier, and we will send that out as a follow-up for anyone that joined after we started, this is a science of axiology or a science of values, but the other side of it is philosophy. So does anyone know who Ogmandino is, by the way? You do? Okay. For anyone that sometimes people say, I don't know who that is. Okay, well, basically, Ogmandino, he was a member of National Speakers Association, which I know Susan and I are both part of. But one of the things that is really interesting about this individual is that he was one of the early founders of self and professional development. And so his story and how he wrote this book called The Greatest Salesman in the World, which is what we teach in this course, by the way, is he was in insurance sales. He was in Cleveland, Ohio. And unfortunately, he got in trouble with, he drank a lot, had a lot of personal issues, ended up losing his wife, his family, his job. And he decided one day he was going to go to a pawn shop. He had $30 left in his pocket, and he was going to go buy a gun and end his life. And as he said, I reached towards the handle of that pawn shop and I pulled my hand back and I made a different decision that day. From that moment on, he decided to clean up his act, quit drinking. He went on to got back in insurance, was one of the top 10 all-time sales insurance individuals and representatives in the world. But then the biggest thing he did is he went on to be a motivational speaker, and he wrote many, many, many books. He's a Hall of Fame speaker, as a matter of fact. But the book that he wrote that I'm going to talk about for just a minute is this book called The Greatest Salesman in the World. The reason I bring this book up is in addition to that science of the assessment, we also follow the philosophy of Ogmandino. And the book, it's the 10 scrolls. And these 10 scrolls, I'll put them up on the screen. What the importance of this is this is how we change our mindset. Part of what we do in this course is we study these 10 scrolls and we will read or listen to these scrolls each day. So each of these scrolls, without reading every single one of them, because you can see them on the screen, I'll just give a couple examples. One of the first ones that I really love is greet this day with love in your heart. So that means no matter how you're feeling, no matter what's going on, no matter what's ahead of you for the day, you really ground yourself in appreciation for not just yourself, but for everybody that you're going to be interacting with. Because let's face it, people buy from who they like and who they trust. If we're showing up negative and we're not coming from a place of compassion, people are not going to want to do business with us. Nobody wants to be around that. All right. We know that. That's just no brainer. But another one of my favorite ones for sales is multiply your value 100-fold. If you think about it, if you can make bringing value to your clients one of your top habits, I promise you will never be short of clients, whether it's a blog post or sharing information or being an expert in your industry. Continue to make bringing value a habit to your clients. So the next question I have for all of you, now that we've talked a little bit about these habits, we've talked about the science of habits, we've talked about the philosophy that you can follow to make your habits back to success where you want them to be, especially for sales. But the question is will you be my next success story? So I'm going to share just a couple takeaways from people that I've worked with. I've worked with about 85 people in my coaching groups, and also some have been one-on-one. I'm now taking this course into sales teams, by the way, and sales teams are finding that they need to focus on their mindset because post-pandemic, there's a lot of burnout we're all still facing. But a couple of the people I've worked with, I'm not going to read word for word what's on the screen, but Alexandra was somebody who she went through a pretty tough time. She was divorced, single mom, 2 kids. Couple takeaways on this are that she really got to a place of scarcity and trying to make ends meet. And when I met her, she had just taken on a new sales role. But the thing that I'll share about Alexandra is not only was she was able to get her joy in the journey back, she has become a top sales performer at her company as a result of this program. And she also became a certified habit finder coach just about 3 years ago. And she's someone that I can say so much about her. She's really a huge go-getter. The next person I'll talk about is another coach that is someone that also went through another relationship initiation. And when I met Elizabeth, she was feeling really stuck. She was in a job she didn't like. She was in a relationship she was not happy in. And what we did is we worked together to really realign her self-confidence, her personal power. She was promoted to be a director at a food sciences company. And now she is doing consulting work, and she's also become certified to be a habit finder coach. Elizabeth is also a single mom with 2 children. Last but not least, this is my mom. I wanted to feature her because she is definitely one of my biggest success stories. My mom is 81 years old. And when she took the assessment, she came to a webinar just like this, just to be nice and help me out. And she called me after the webinar and she said, I really want to take this habit assessment. She's like, I've got these old lady thoughts. I feel stuck. And she took the assessment, we talked about it, and she ended up going through this program. And the craziest thing about it is that, number one, she doesn't feel like an old lady anymore, but she went out and got certified to be a tiny habits coach. So she is now running her own business. She's thriving, and she probably has more energy than I do. So she's always got a smile on her face too. So my mom is really amazing. Okay. And this last one I'm going to share is somebody I worked with at a medical company. Nicole was a clinical sales consultant, and I'm not going to name the name of the company, but I'll just say she was not feeling her joy in the journey in this organization, and she quit without having any job lined up. She went through my program, and then she started her own business called Life Saving CPR. So she now works for herself, and she has been thriving ever since. So as you can see from these stories, it might be about being better in sales. It might be about finding your path, your mission. But the biggest thing I think all these stories have in common is that each person became a bigger and better version of themselves after they went through the program. Okay, so I know you're probably asking, what's next? So I want to ask you all a question. What would it be like for you if you could accelerate your success in 2024? Your success could just mean getting unstuck. It could mean I want to make more money. It could mean I want to make more friends and have a social life again. It could mean I want to have better boundaries and emotional balance. It might mean I want more self-confidence and happiness in my life. I want to have more productivity, or it might mean I want to have better self and time discipline in my life. The good news is it's all possible. And I want to introduce you to how it's possible. And that is this. Our course is called the Best Version of You Success Habits Breakthrough Program. The great news is I'm only going to do one of these virtual this coming year. The other ones are going to be in person over a weekend. But I'm doing my January Kick Off the New Year course starting on January 15th. And the good news for all of you, just like this session tonight, it's virtual. You can do it from your home. You don't need to dress up. You don't need to go anywhere, especially for those of us in the cold temperatures. And the way this works is it's going to be 10 sessions over 90 days. So basically, each Monday evening, we will meet for 1 hour. And what we're going to do during that time is we're going to focus on 6 habits that we talked about tonight on the Habit Finder assessment. So the big question is, you might be wondering, what's in it for me? What are some of the outcomes of the program? Well, first of all, I promise my commitment to you is that you will become unstuck and you'll accelerate your success in sales, business, or if there's a different part of your life that I haven't mentioned. The next thing that I'm committed to do is help you rekindle your joy in the journey. I am personally committed to you having more sales and more self-confidence over this next year. I want you to enjoy your work with intention. And I also want you to make some new friends and connections. And last but not least, be accountable to not just yourself, but your self-discipline. But wait, there's more. I also want to work with you to master your mindset. And I'm going to teach you a process that I've been following in my life now for 5 years that allowed me to quit my job, start my own business. And I have also increased my income by about 50% since I left corporate America and since I've applied these principles. I also want to teach you new habits. I want to be committed to you being the best version of you now and help you release any self-sabotaging patterns that are getting in your way. And the way this works is it is group coaching. There is also one-on-one coaching that will be available. I do have another Habit Finder coach that's also going to be joining us. And the cool thing about it is that you will be with like-minded people. The people that are registered so far are women. They are women that are in the speaking, training, and consulting business. So we always have a diverse group of people, but for some reason, I seem to attract a lot of women, and that's all good. Okay, so moving forward to this. What I would also like to share with you, I believe the value is priceless because in addition to what I shared already, I will set up an orientation and a goal setting call with you individually outside of the group before we get started. I want to be really clear with you on what are the 3 things you want to change in your life, whether it's more sales, better relationships, maybe it's a health journey. Everybody's got different goals. I also want to share with you that this is a program. I'm a habit finder coach, but part of what we're going to follow is these books that you see pictured here. It's not just me talking every time. There's going to be some reading between sessions. And you can see one of the books I already talked about tonight, The Greatest Salesman in the World, is part of the curriculum that we follow. I will also work with you on a 90-day success plan. There will be a debrief at the end of the program, so you and I can make sure you got 100% ROI and that you did achieve the goals or made huge progress towards them. It includes the books that are pictured. And as I always say, the best investment that you ever will make is in yourself. So the investment, you're probably wondering, is what does it actually look like? So the investment in the Best Version of You Success Habits Breakthrough Virtual Program, I typically charge $2,497 for this course. But because we are getting ready to start a new year, and because you came to this webinar tonight, I've got some great news for you. I am going to be taking $500 off of the tuition. This includes all the books. It includes everything you saw on the past slides. We're not taking anything away by reducing the investment. And I also want you to know that I do have installment packages available. So if you prefer to pay 2 payments or 4 payments, great. If you prefer to pay in full, you get a little bit of a discount. however you want to do it. But I also want to share that I'm only going to be offering this for the next 48-ish hours. So through Saturday at midnight, we will be going back to the $24.97 price. And a friendly reminder, the class does start on January 15th. What a great time to get started as we start the new year. So if you're curious about this program, you can, of course, scan the code to register, or in a moment, I'm going to open this up for Q&A, and I will put the link into the chat box in case you want to take a look at the payment plans, or maybe you want to save the link and think about it. Not too long, but maybe you just want to take a look at what it looks like. I will make sure to put that in there for you. And last but not least, if you're thinking about it, maybe you've got questions, maybe you have considerations, maybe you just want to talk to me one-on-one about something I said tonight. That's this bonus I'm going to give everybody tonight for being here. You can scan this code, and again, I will also put this link in the chat box. So if you'd like to set up a call with me, that is my gift to you. And of course, what's said here stays here. I honor confidentiality with everybody that I talk to. All right, getting down to the end. So one of the most powerful questions that I ask myself is this: if nothing changes, where will I be 1 year from today? And if not now, when? So I invite you to follow your heart. Your heart knows best. Sometimes our head gets in the way with emotions and judgments and other noise, but I invite you to follow your heart or your gut feeling and the decision that is best for you. I honor it, whatever that decision is. And as I always say, as I follow in my life, the best investment that I've made in my life has always been in my personal and my professional development. And I will continue to invest in myself beyond this course that I'm talking about tonight. Okay, so I'm going to close it out with my contact information. So if you would like to reach out to me offline or would like to talk one-on-one, my website and my cell number are there along with my email address. So I will go ahead and I am going to stop sharing the screen, or at least minimize it. And I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask me about anything I said or anything that came up during this conversation tonight. And I will put those links in the chat while I am standing by for questions. Going once. Thank you, Lorraine. And Elena, I saw you joined us. I didn't know if I know you came into the room. Any questions from anyone? Glad you could be here tonight. Okay. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate that. And for anyone that did not take the habit or see the link for the habit assessment, I will put this here in the chat box also. So you have that. Bear with me 1 second. And find it. And again, the link that I'm putting in right now is the link to take the free habit finder assessment. And this is going to help you see if your thoughts are supporting or sabotaging, and I just spelled my last name wrong. Let me do that one more time. This assessment is going to help you see where you stand. Are your thoughts supporting your success? Are they sabotaging your success? Is there, like all of us, we have strengths and we also have areas of, as I always say, of opportunity. But this will tell you and show you exactly where you are and 6 key areas of your thinking. So okay, the second link is correct. Sorry, that first one was not spelled right. So that the second one is correct if you're going to take the assessment. Okay, any other questions or comments before we wrap it up? Nope. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right, ladies. Well, if there's no questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and close it out here. And I want to say thank you all for joining this webinar tonight. And feel free to reach out to me offline if you have any questions or anything I can answer. Susan, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Well, Happy New Year, ladies, and we will see you in the new year. And thank you again for joining. Bye.